When it comes to the world of property investing, there's a word that I say quite often, and I say phases. Phases are very important because the word focus comes to mind when I think of phases. You think of phase 1, 2, 3, kind of means don't get out of the focus of number 1 and move to number 3. Stick on 1, and when it's done, move to 2 and move to 3. This is a very important piece because when I look at my own journey, I really realized that going through the investing journey and starting to think of the barbecue conversations I'd been in, there was a moment where I realized, whoa, this is why people just do not get ahead with property investing. And it was about, I think it was 4 years ago. And I can remember vividly a barbecue when I was talking to someone, they're like, yeah, we're thinking of investing, but we also want to make sure we get our home next few years. So we're not so sure if we should invest now or get our home. The home's a really important goal. But then we don't want to miss out on the future, and so maybe just buy a small one for now, and then maybe we'll get our home, think about it, and then maybe revisit investing again. How many times have you heard that? That was one of many. And what I came to realize was that the investors who got it all wrong versus the one who got it all right had no focus, had no segmented plans, had no phases of investing. And so this is where, before you go into the phases, I want to understand and help you understand, where you can actually try and really start to think of this concept of it all. And how I started to realize this is a screenshot that's going to come up any second around a map of inflated passive income with inflation considered. So as you can see, 100K here in today's passive income. If you're getting across to, say, 20 years from now, you probably got to aim for about 165K when it's at a 2.5% inflation rate, and the number gets higher as you go on. That 165 comes in about 20 years. Now, as you go higher, you'll see that the blue line against the yellow line, which is passive income, starts to go higher as well. And this is because the rental increase trend is hopefully outpacing inflation and therefore getting closer to your target. So when I started to look at purchases, I realized that, okay, 4 properties of 550K-ish might get me to this target, yielding at a certain amount. But then when I hold it for another 10 years, from 20-year plans to 30-year plans, all of a sudden this number's 3 properties. So what I started to realize was that, hey, before I move into the phase of going and, say, getting a huge home or having this back and forth like old barbecue auntie did, I think the main thing was that I wanted to realize that if I can just hit 3 properties, and by my 30-year plan, it gets to my goal. Cool, it's not 20, but at least I know at 3, I'm going to hit the goal before I pull off work, before I maybe want to start to calm down, start to retire. How much peace of mind does that give you? And this is where I come back to phases. And so this story made me realize that if I take my journey into phases, phase 1 is hit the mark with 3 investments. 1, 2, 3, I hit that. Now I know if I've got a 30-year holding horizon and I'm in my 30s and retirement in my 60s, I should be okay. This is when I can move to phase 2. I want to pause phase 1 and I just want to think about a bit of lifestyle, maybe my house, maybe travel, maybe a nice new car. Because you know what? I had my map out for 3 properties to get me there in 30 years. I can always come back to getting it down to 25. Here's a property guy telling you to just go and live a little, instead of saying, go and get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties. What I'm trying to say is, yes, you can do that and it's okay. And it's actually about taking phases rather than just going, no, I need to be ruthless in my goals and my approach and go through it. You can take moments to reset and requalify what you want in life. If you really are absolutely clear and you know that you want that goal to be hit in 20 years, no matter what, and not 30, then you might lay off this whole 3 properties now and you might go to 4. You might go to 5 or 6 as tightly as possible, as soon as possible, so you can get ahead. But the key thing I realized was, don't be one of those people that are confused, don't have clear phases of plans. Because if you start going, hey, I want to go and get my home, and then maybe I'll come back to investing and maybe I'll buy a cheap one, maybe I won't buy anything. There's no end goal, so you need to be able to reverse engineer. And that's what we do in terms of InvestorKit and trying to think of property planning and property mapping for clients' portfolios. So when it comes to property mapping, instead of you going, hey, I need to hit this goal in 20 years, I need to buy 5 properties, you've given yourself this peace of mind to go, it only takes me 3 to meet my retirement goal. So now that I hit that, I'll have my peace of mind and I should be able to move on to some other things that are important. Because when I ask people all the time, I say to you, hey, imagine you had 2 options. Option 1 is you go get one place, you go get your home, and then you figure out how to get your rest of your places. But then because you overindulged in the home or overindulged in the lifestyle, you're playing catch up in later parts of life and you really got to make this work before you're 60. But hey, you know what? You got your home. Sounds pretty cool, right? You got your home. And then I give person option 2 is, imagine you went with rigorous target setting and then you mapped out a plan, the actions you needed to take, and you just realized that there was 3 investment properties you needed to hit. Yes, cool, I get it. The home will be compromised because you're taking loans out for 3 properties. But you go get your 3 properties done. Now, target 1 just got eliminated. Phase 1 is complete. Now you're looking at phase 2. And you're basically going, hey, the same way I approached life with target 1, buy 3 properties, my next target is buy a home to live in. And then from here, if that's your goal, then you can start to go, okay, well, for property number 4 is my home. And with property number 4, you might start to go, well, I can't really do it right away because I just soaked my borrowing capacity into this, but that's okay. I'm not playing catch up on my investing path. I've got that done for my 30-year plan. I'll figure out the income I need. I'll reverse engineer the borrowing capacity to get my home. When I stop renting and start buying, how much capacity does that save? How much is left over? What if I go to bank C, D? See, the way the human mind is, you'll get into solution. However, if you give yourself all the options at the start, all the back and forth, no clear phases, no clear focus, you won't give yourself the solutions. You're just going to have problems, confusion, paralysis, as by the most popular saying, by analysis. So I think here, this is when I realized the importance of phases. When that barbecue conversation, I promise you it was a barbecue. I'm not just saying it for the purpose of property conversation. It was actually a barbecue. That barbecue conversation was the one that made me realize, whoa, she is very confused. And then her husband was there nodding and they're like, yeah, totally. So difficult. Husband, yep. And then they're both just looking at each other, gulp of the beer, barbecue goes on, and yeah, the rest is history. Guess what? That didn't happen once, it happened many times, different settings, different places, dinners at home, all this confusion. Oh, we're thinking of moving to this school, we're thinking of this, we're thinking of, he's turning 8 and we're going to go do this, maybe move to this area, we're thinking of going to that area. Oh yeah, got to invest as well, it's going to be busy, maybe we'll park the investing for a bit, market's a little uneasy, not so sure. Wow. That's like that. And I'm just like going, yep, yep, sounds good. Oh no, must be very tough. How many times have you heard this? I'm sure you've heard this in your own circle. Maybe you're the one in the circle. Maybe it's your friend, maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your sister, who knows? Whatever. The main thing is I can tell you that you've heard this before. And this is lack of clarity, lack of planning, lack of phases, and lack of commitment. And so when I realized phases and focus was key, this is when, guess what? If you do hit the goal for the home, if that's your thing, or you travel and lifestyle, go away overseas for a few years, knowing that you've got the 3 properties working. Now you can come back. What if you come back, epiphany, and you're just like, I want to hit another 10, 20 places. I want to be a squillionaire, and I want to do all these crazy things, and I want to go and give back here and do that there. Whatever floats your boat. It's cool. But the key thing here is that when you go on this journey, you're going to be able to move into phase 3 now and say, re-engineer, replan, know that I've got my 30-year plan set, know that I've now got my home in phase 2. Now I'm going to, reach for the stars. Whatever you want to do. That's up to you. But it was absolute focus in each phase. And it's the same thing when I've learned about scaling portfolios. I have acquisition phases. Hey, we want to buy condensedly in 3 to 5 years. Why not 20 years of buying and 20 years of perfectly spreading assets? Because if you buy year 1, year 6, year 10, just when the times are good, year 1's going to be sweet. 20 years on a 20-year plan, you bought in year 1, it's likely the numbers are stacked in your favor for it to do well. Year 6, you might be okay, might be alright, might do well, but year 10, odds are against you. You've really got to make the year 10 one work. Can't buy in the wrong cycle. Guess what? If you bought in Brizzy Adelaide from 2000 to 2010, outperformance. If you bought in Sydney and Melbourne during that time, not as good. 2010, if you bought in Brizzy Adelaide to 2020, probably not as good. You bought in Sydney and Melbourne, outperformance. So the key is that 10-year mark matters, which is why I don't like acquisition being so spread and far and wide. We want it to be as tight as possible because the person who gets to the bigger asset base first wins. Not number of properties, the bigger asset base, the volume, the size of the portfolio in total dollar value. Because a $5 million portfolio at 5% growth is $250K. And my customers heard me say this all the time. A $2.5 million portfolio at 10% growth is $250. So you need to get double the weighting of growth just to meet the same compound dollar value. Sure, you put in less, but if you spend all that time to put in that less, that's your loss in the long term. So the key here is acquisition phases, then we go into holding phases. Why is holding important? Because even if you were on interest only, the debt stays the same. During the holding phase, the values, the rents are all climbing. Then we go into consolidation. Are we going to put all the money into an offset account? Absolutely offset all the debt and have high income? Or are we not going to be able to do that? Maybe savings aren't as high and we maybe need to sell a property or two to clear the debts on the rest. But you can see again, this distinct phase, acquisition, holding, or optimizing, consolidation. The same thing goes with investing, maybe buying a home, traveling lifestyle, coming back to investing. Don't be that person that puts it all together. Tries to jumble it, fumble it, and you go nowhere. This is a big part of what I see, having over experience of 500 plus property portfolio sessions. So I get to see a whole bunch of things when it comes to the phases, where people are at, what they're trying to achieve. Look at other phases: residential, commercial. But I've learned if you go from residential, commercial, back to commercial again, it's not as smooth. There are moments where you can make it work. You might start commercial first, secure your long-term income assets, so you know that, hey, these 3 commercial properties, if they're debt-free, they're going to make my retirement. We're very, very well off. Now I'm done. I'm going to move to residential. If I want to come back to commercial, I'll give it a crack. But at least you had focus in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The key here is phases to your investing will set you apart, because clarity, a plan, reverse engineering it, knowing your worst case is the difference maker. I am going down a path now with my own portfolio where I said to myself, hey, I know that if I do nothing with my current portfolio, held it for 10 to 20 years, sold some off, cleared the debt and the rest, I'd be okay. So what that does for me is that allows me to just go forward and try different types of investments, make bigger decisions in my investing journey, go on to larger assets now soon, go on to certain commercial properties, knowing that I've set that base right, knowing that my focus in phase 1 of acquiring to X dollar value allowed me to get that plan in place, so I'm going to be okay. So now I can stretch for a home, stretch for some travel, or stretch for different types of assets. But it needed rigorous focus and phases, so I could nail phase 1 before I moved to phase 2. What 1 is, what 2 is totally up to you, but this is the key and the clarity you get when you have the right support around you. And if you are after the right support in terms of going, hey, I want a team that builds a portfolio plan with me, considers this holistic aspect of planning for the future, considering where we are now, considering how we get there, and we do this together, this is key. Reach out to us here, investorkit.com.au. You can request a free consultation. It's this type of thinking we want to instill, and this type of thinking we follow ourselves. So why not get that right together, create phases, and whether it's a home phase now or investment phase now, figure that out, get some clarity, and move on from there. Don't be that person who wants to do everything all at once, because that's when you usually get it wrong.